It was two of us from the East Coast and one from Texas who actually grew up in Oklahoma City until she couldn't stand it anymore and got out, really because of sexism and racism. So seeing it through her eyes was very enlightening, and I don't think Oklahoma's going to be the same. You know, in my heart was happy and bubbly about all of this, and then, you know, the two of us from the East Coast were there, and we see the headlines about Brooklyn, and it's like another punch in the stomach all the time. But I feel that, well, we are materialists, and we know that if we're going to have a society where Black lives really matter, it's going to be the same society where how much money goes into the schools is not decided by capitalists and their puppets. Right. We're going to need the masses. We're going to need everybody. And so we have to meet folks where they are. And also, if Gloria came from there, there's other good folk down there. And sure enough, you know, the three of us went out to day one and day two. Wherever we saw somebody with a Kaepernick shirt or a Che shirt, we got in conversations. Great signs. I'll show you the signs that we made up. It was actually overkill, because it was unheard of to have these mass signs. People had such creative, you know, these are teachers who do bulletin boards and stuff. And it's not like they robbed the school to do it. They have to pay for all that stuff themselves anyway. So they went home and made beautiful stuff. But we had Oklahoma to Puerto Rico, education workers fight austerity. We had Make Big Oil Pay for Oklahoma schools. Solidarity from the Southern Workers Assembly, which was one of the flyers that we mass produced over there. Very good flyer linking the whole region. That was well received. And then Teachers, School Workers, Parents, Students Unite. And they, you know, they didn't really need this advice from us. They kind of had that. And, you know, the big oil, it's so blatant there that, for example, the next president of Oklahoma University is coming to them from being a CEO at ConocoPhillips, Chevron Phillips, and Phillips Petroleum Company. Okay? I didn't make that up. So there were many other signs and indications calling out by name some of these oil barons, who some of them, I forget the first name, but the last name is Ham. It's mentioned in an article that's going to go up online tonight. People said he came in person to like stare down the legislators so they would vote, you know, his way, or they wouldn't get his money. And also every time that they're talking about the gross production tax, which is the tax on the oil, which is the lowest of all oil producing states, 2% until this recent victory that the teachers pushed by threatening to strike, is that it's going to start going to 5% for 3 years and then possibly 7%. But I started a sentence and now I need to finish it. Yeah, anytime that's in discussion in the legislature, he buses in people with T-shirts, you know, from his employees. That's what they have to do for the day. So that's the nature. And there was an indigenous artist who made 2 big banners. And we're going to get in contact with them through some other people we met in terms of, well, let me tell you what they did. So they had one big banner that they climbed up on a pedestal of a statue that was supposedly being repaired, I don't know, for the range riders. And they held that one up, and they had a bullhorn. They were saying their points, mostly about environmental issues. And on another thing, which was a big billboard around the Capitol, you know, sometimes it's like educational things, and here's our product is the oil industry, so they had a big thing but you couldn't see it because it was blocked by this giant banner made out of a sheet with the faces of these and names of 3 of these oil barons and saying, "Stop the oilgarchy." So we're gonna look for them in terms of the tour by the Durham folks who also know how to address public art, as we know. And we got to meet with, but my point was there were a lot of signs talking about against fracking, against oil, and demanding that, that these profiteers have to give something to the education program of the state, and that it shouldn't come from other things. It shouldn't come from healthcare. We met with the Peace House. Peace House raised $22,000 to put full-page ads in the 2 Sunday papers, Tulsa and the Oklahoman, which reached over 500,000, showing this breakdown of how much Texas pays and Wyoming pays 13.5% tax. In other words, the oil companies there are contributing to an extent. Of course, if we were in charge, it would be 100%. It would be like Libya before the Clintons bombed the hell out of it, and it would be like Venezuela today, where if you have your resources, you put them into your human resources. Let's see. So jumping around, we met with them. We met with 2 people who we know from National Network on Cuba, but come to find out they're involved in so many other things. The sister said that she worked with the Women's March, Oklahoma City, and who knew they had 12,000 people in 2016 at the Women's March in Oklahoma City, and in 2017, wait, am I saying this right? 2017, because of the inauguration, my fault. After the 2016 elections. And then this year, it was taken over by women of color activists. And so that was the platform. It was 6,000, but still, Oklahoma City, 6,000, led by women of color, is not what Gloria was expecting. Her jaw kept dropping everywhere we went. We came through from Texas, actually, because it's cheaper to fly to Texas, and we stopped in Chickasaw country, and Gloria picked up a paper, and it was, Davis Public Schools announces plans for possible teacher walkout. And what's different is that the school, there's a lot of school districts, there's a lot of little bitty districts, and I should mention that there's 39 indigenous nations in Oklahoma. Oklahoma City is a little bit outside of the borders, so I was checking if it had another name, and it didn't, so I'll keep calling it Oklahoma City. But the word Oklahoma comes from a Choctaw word that means red people. So that's where we were, and as we saw for ourselves, and also confirmed by these very knowledgeable activists, issues of the oppressed community were not centered in from the stage. What we saw was, day one, there was a Black Baptist preacher who opened with a prayer, and then the rest of the lineup was white. The president of my president of the AFT was there. She never tried to have any strikes here, but another day we'll talk about that. The president from West Virginia was there, and of course that got a big, a lot of cheers, because they did it in 9 days and they won. There was they're involving the issue of school staff who are non-teaching staff to also get equitable pay raises and so on. And what the teachers explained over and over was that even if they get $5,000 or $6,000 this year, first of all, the past 28 years, the budget was always late, and nothing happened, and there was no increase or there were decreases in the education budget, and they have no trust based on that. It's scientific not to trust that you did it to year 29 because we forced your hand, but what are you going to do year 30? You're going to screw us again. So they want something, that's sustainable, that's concrete, and if it goes the way that the legislature started over that last weekend, where they said, okay, we're gonna give you this education budget, including these raises, but then they didn't pass legislation that would pay for it with these different taxes and so on. Or they said, we're going to take it out of this part, we're going to take it out of books to pay for you. The teachers are going to end up, as they always do, going even deeper in their pockets to resource their classrooms and their children, their students. So it's not, a lot of signs were, here you go, thanks for the raise, but you forgot about our kids. And that was on day 3 as we were leaving. Teachers jeer as State House rejects new call for revenue. They, as you can see, were taking, it was cold outside. The first day we pretty much stayed outside, except some people were lobbying. But by the second day it was a super wind, and when we got there people were lined up to go in. And then they went in and it was more like Wisconsin style, like really just being there, but still being polite. And by day 3, they were really pretty rowdy inside there. And of course they continued after we left Thursday and today. Now today there were 3 tax bills on the question, and they all passed, but one was a repeal. One was repealing a $5 tax on stays at hotels and motels. That would have generated $42 million. So that sounds like they're not satisfied. And every day it was like, we're not easy to wear down, you're not gonna wait us out. We work with middle school kids, we have patience, we work in, and those books are one thing, but people showed us videos of their walls crumbling live, watching your wall crumble. We heard so many stories, and we heard about people who spent their own money to put a sink in the science lab, which is not cheap, So what I was saying also, day 2, they had inside, okay, so Gloria and I went to meet with these folks while Ben went inside and took pictures, and he said it was a black man and a white woman co-chairing the stuff inside at that point. And on day 3, they did acknowledge that it was Martin Luther King, the 50th. There was a moment of silence, and it was also that day was chosen by a subgroup of teachers to start a 110-mile walk from Tulsa back to the Capitol. So that's something that's still going on. We met one of the leaders of that. In fact, he was there to play music, and he had changed the words to some of the songs. And I had my copy from the memorial for Milt of Solidarity Forever, which he hadn't had before. So by the next day, he had changed that up, and they were singing that back behind in the Capitol while a lot of people were inside, and a lot of people were picketing, and there were lots more and more students were coming. And they were doing a playlist. They played a clean version, Rihanna, Better Have My Money, Pay Me What You Owe Me, okay? But it was all over the place. They had us doing the cha-cha slide, But it was cool. And then they were playing the folk songs. And then I saw yesterday they had, they have band and choir directors, the music teachers, and the music students. The high school students had their own rally on Wednesday as well. And it seems like it's gonna still be ongoing. So I'm guessing I should probably be wrapping up. Hopefully our folks who are at the Labor Notes Conference are gonna get out our analysis about this in a flyer tomorrow. And also I'm hoping that we can convince somebody to go back later this month when there's like the delegate assembly of the union. It is really true. Gloria said growing up, she didn't hardly know anybody in the union. People thought that was a communist front. The singer guy told us the union's a dirty word. She met one of the union officials at a restaurant and was saying, how come you guys call it a walkout, not a strike? And she was like, well, you're from here, you know that's like a real dirty word. So, and yet still it's happening. And even by the second day, the public employees were out on the corner with their sign, which is a more diverse union than the teachers. The teachers are definitely like, 90 whatever % white, with the teachers of color concentrated in the Capitol. But yeah, we met a lot of good folks, and we got high school socialist club that's getting 15 copies of our paper from now on, if they ever get back to school. So, I guess I'll end on that. Thank you. Oh, my whole trip was paid for by donations from friends, union members, and family and people here. So thanks a lot. The comment about the New York Post article, which, they didn't intend it to give free advertising. They meant it to say, oh, it's outside agitators, or the community can't think for themselves to do this. Like, shut up. But similarly in Oklahoma, some of these right-wing legislators and the governor were saying, oh, it's paid protesters, it's Antifa. There was one guy, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being anti-fascist, right? But how that's their code word for violence baiting, these kindergarten teachers and whatnot. Just saying. And it was one guy, because that's the home place of Woody Guthrie and a lot of the folk songs, and his motto was, this guitar kills fascists, right? So one guy had made a sign that said, this profession kills fascists. Meaning teaching, because you expand people's mind and so on, and if you're informed, you can't fall for the propaganda. So I think that's where they got the idea of that. And there was somebody who had a Guy Fawkes Day thing, and that's the mask, and blah blah blah. So they're stretching. They're really trying to condemn them in some way. They said there were. They used the word outside agitator. So the next day, one of the parents had like a 4-year-old with a sign that said outside agitator. they just can't. But I think watching that is, let them bring all of their bullshit, because and we can't wait for Trump for somebody to ask Trump, what do you think about the striking teachers in Oklahoma, so he can say some stupid thing and turn some more people. They're being exposed to the tactics of the state, and that's how you learn. And that's how you might be more open to getting it when somebody's saying Black Lives Matters is identity extremist or some other garbage, because now they've been called. They've got the State Bureau of Investigation looking into threats made on legislators. Somebody probably said, we'll be back, or watch yourself. I mean, they were feisty, and they are, and they're going to stay feisty. They charged them with vandalism. They taped signs to the doors of these legislators because the legislators wouldn't let them in, and there were so many of them there that they were threatening the the speaker, the second person, I forget, I'm sorry, it's in the article, you have to leave or we're going to start arresting you. So if they didn't know, this is how they're going to find out. Lenin said a strike is a school for the revolution. So, you know, I mean, it's not just from one day to the next, but things do kind of happen and sink in, and we're going to keep, you know, fanning those flames the best we can. That's it.